Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix, the second race in this latest triple header and the final sprint event of the year. I know some of you will be gutted by that news. Now, one championship may well be decided, but there is still plenty up for grabs across the final two races. The Constructors' Championship still needs to be wrapped up, and we have one hell of a scrap going on for 6th place between 3 different teams. Okay, maybe not as thrilling or prestigious as the Drivers' Championship, but still massively important for the teams. A lot at stake there. But anyway, let's jump straight into the preview, starting as always with a look at the track and all the usual stats that follow. So last time out F1 was in Vegas, where George Russell took the win and Max Verstappen wrapped up the Drivers' Championship title with 2 races to go. But now it is on to Qatar for the penultimate race of the 2024 season. A lap of the Lusail International Circuit is 5.419 kilometers long, that is if you prefer just over 3.36 miles, and is made up of 16 corners with 57 laps scheduled for Sunday's race. That's 19 laps for the sprint. And the race lap record is held by Max Verstappen, who posted a 1:24.319 in 2023. This weekend, there will be just the one DRS zone to help drivers get some overtaking done, and that zone runs down the start-finish straight with its detection point just after turn 15. Not the easiest place to pass due to how fast and twisty the track is. The circuit actually has the highest percentage of high-speed corners of the season, but that doesn't mean it's impossible to overtake. In fact, as we saw last season, Turn 1 was a popular spot to make some moves, helped of course by the DRS, but we did see cars side by side through that 1, 2 and 3 sequence a few times as well, and George Russell, as well as others, actually made a few overtakes around the outside of that first corner, which is always really good to see. Hopefully, we'll get plenty of action this year too. And in 2023, Max Verstappen wrapped up the title in the sprint and then went on to win the race on Sunday ahead of sprint winner Oscar Piastri and the second McLaren of Lando Norris in what was a physically tough race that resulted in drivers either retiring, vomiting in the car, passing out in the race, or almost losing consciousness post-race, just due to the heat, humidity, and the relentless nature of the Grand Prix. With the event being held later in the year this time, the race should be cooler, and so hopefully all of that will be avoided. And here's a stat for you. McLaren last won a Constructors title all the way back in 1998, and that was their 8th title. Believe it or not, that was 26 years ago. And if you take that 26 and divide it by the number of Constructors titles the team has won, again, that's 8, you get 3.25. And of course, 3 is the number of dry tyre compounds available across a race weekend. 2 is the number of different dry compounds that must be run during a race. And 5 is the number of dry tyre compounds across the whole Pirelli range. Oh yes, that is right. It is, I suppose, a triple segue into tyre talk time. The compounds available for this one then are, as they were last year, at the hardest end of the Pirelli range. So they are the hard C1, the medium C2, and the soft C3. Now, this track puts tyres through energy levels that are comparable to those at Suzuka and Silverstone, which is why the hardest compounds have been chosen. It's also important to remember that the circuit was resurfaced ahead of last year's event, and so that will result in the surface emanating heat, which in turn could lead to graining being the big concern for teams as well as thermal degradation. As Pirelli rightly points out, though, it's hard to really know which way teams will go when it comes to strategy due to what's happened in 2023. Last year's winning strategy, of course, being a 3-stopper, but that was due to the FIA and Pirelli deciding to impose a maximum limit of 18 laps run on any set of tyres in the race, as I'm sure you remember, due to concerns about the possibility of micro tears in the sidewall between the topping compound and the carcass cords because of the impact generated from driving over the curbs at some corners repeatedly. That mandated stint length meant that every driver that finished the race pitted at least 3 times, with race winner Max Verstappen running 3 sets of mediums and 1 set of hards, pitting to change tyres on laps 17, 34 and 51. Pirelli says over the past few months they have worked with the FIA to ensure that what happened in 2023 will not happen again. The curbs have had their tips rounded off at 7 corners, the first 2 after the start, turns 4 and 10, and from 12 to 14, the section that stressed the sides of the tyres the most last year. Pirelli's R&D department have carried out tests on the dynamic test beds in Milan using a sample of the new curbs supplied by the FIA, and engineers have also analysed tyres from tests carried out by some teams in recent weeks at the circuit running pre-2024 cars. The total pit lane lost time in 2023 was largely between 27 and 29 seconds. The full safety car made its first appearance in a Sunday race at Qatar last year, but there were also 2 safety car deployments during the sprint last season. And as already touched on earlier in the video, the race is being held later in the year and so should be much cooler than it was in 2023, although it will still be warm, and it will perhaps unsurprisingly be a dry weekend too. As always though, the latest forecast as of Thursday morning is on screen for you now to have a look at if you're interested. And your schedule for this one is very different to Vegas for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a sprint weekend obviously, but secondly, it's an afternoon and evening race here in the UK, Europe and elsewhere too, I'm sure. That all means FP1 will get the weekend started on Friday from 1:30 PM GMT and is of course the only practice session of the event, with sprint qualifying starting at 5:30 PM also on Friday. Saturday's F1 action starts with the sprint race at 2 PM with qualifying for the Grand Prix from 6 PM, and it is lights out for the race on Sunday at 4 PM, and once again that is in UK time. Now, before I make my usual round of predictions, let's have a quick run through some of the news and talking points ahead of the action in Qatar. And by some of the news and talking points, I mean one piece of news and one talking point. But anyway, first up, the big news this week is that after a weekend of speculation in Vegas, it has been confirmed that a General Motors-backed entry branded as Cadillac will join the grid and become the 11th team in 2026, at least in principle. So GM's involvement in the Andretti team remains unwavering, but the American giant will take the lead on the branding of the new F1 team, with the initially Andretti-led program slowly evolving into a GM-led project. Cadillac has confirmed, though, that Mario Andretti will serve as a director for the F1 team. The team will start off with a customer supply of engines, but GM says it is on the path to being a full works team by the end of the decade, which could be 2028 based on the plans previously laid out by Andretti Cadillac. The favoured engine partner is Ferrari, who of course lose Sauber as a customer in 2026. And when asked if those rumours were correct, Mario Andretti said, quote, "That is what we're talking about. That's not definite yet, but that is the objective and that is the preference." Interesting stuff. Stefano Domenicali said that General Motors and Cadillac's commitment to the project is, quote, "an important and positive demonstration of the evolution of our sport," and adds that the sport looks forward to seeing the progress and growth of this application, again, quote, "certain of the full collaboration and support of all the parties involved." With FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem saying he is fully supportive of the efforts made by the FIA, Formula One, General Motors and the teams to maintain a dialogue and work towards this outcome, and that all parties, including the FIA, will continue to work together to ensure the process progresses smoothly. And although the Drivers' Championship is all done and dusted, the Constructors' title is still up for grabs, and that could be decided this weekend in Qatar. But honestly, it's a big ask for McLaren, who chased their first title since, as already mentioned, 1998. They currently sit top of the standings, 24 points clear of Ferrari, with Red Bull 29 further back. Realistically, with Sergio Perez not delivering, to put it mildly, it's a battle between the top two teams. Following the race in Qatar, there will be just 44 points left on the table, and so if McLaren do want to win it this weekend, they must outscore Ferrari by at least 21 points. If the gap is exactly 44 points come the end of the weekend, then the title won't be done, because Ferrari could, in theory, win on countback if things go their way in the season finale. It is a tall order for McLaren, no doubt about that, but it is worth remembering that they scored 47 points here last year and Ferrari only took 13. So it is absolutely possible, and this is a track that should suit the team from Woking too. Honestly though, hopefully they don't do it and we get some sort of title decider in Abu Dhabi next week. Right then, time to make some predictions, and as always, please do not take these too seriously, just a little bit of fun, but if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And last time, well, the less said, the better. Haas being top of the midfield, the only thing I got right. So let's just move on very quickly. This week, as already mentioned, this is a circuit that should suit McLaren, and so they should be favourites heading into the weekend. They also won the sprint with Oscar Piastri last year and finished second and third to Max Verstappen in the race, so I'd be amazed if they don't go well in Qatar. Now, Ferrari reckoned that Vegas was the best track for them of the remaining three, and so we could well be looking at a McLaren title triumph. But for what feels like the millionth time I've said this in 2024, this season has been so unpredictable, and so who even knows what's going to happen this weekend. Ferrari may surprise us, Red Bull could rock up and dominate, and Mercedes may be in contention too. But I've got to pick somebody, and I'm backing McLaren for this one, and so I'm going with Lando Norris for sprint pole and the sprint win. I'll go with Oscar Piastri, though, for his first ever Grand Prix pole, and do you know what? Yeah, let's go with him for the win on Sunday too. As for the final podium places, Carlos Sainz P2 and Lando Norris P3. Actually, no, I've changed my mind on that one. Ferrari didn't go well here last year, and although it will be cooler and no 2 years are the same, I'll actually swap out Sainz for Max Verstappen. Sorry, Carlos. Elsewhere, my pick for top of the midfield, so the 5th best finishing team is Haas again. The team getting another step closer to 6th in the Constructors and all the cash that comes with it. That is hopefully going to be a great scrap between Haas, Alpine and RB across the final 2 races, and I hope that goes down to the wire as well. As for some bolder picks, I'll go with Nico Hülkenberg for a top 7 finish. Is that bold? Probably not anymore. He's been delivering brilliantly this season, hasn't he? Franco Colapinto to bounce back from his crash in Vegas with a point at some stage across the weekend. And I'm going to stay somewhat positive for Sauber and say, let's say one of them qualifies inside the top 12 on Saturday. That is it then for the Qatar Grand Prix preview, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comment section down below. And to catch up on the latest Formula 1 news and reaction, head on over to planetf1.com. Now, I will be back on Friday. Yes, Friday with the sprint qualifying watch along and then live again for every remaining session across the weekend and live again with Stuart shortly after the checker flag on Sunday for the usual race reaction. Assuming, of course, I have any voice left after all of that. But in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like as it really does give the channel a bit of a boost in the algorithm and consider subscribing so you don't miss any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.